There you go.
So, how old were you actually? 7,
I
8?
was I was like, yeah, 7. I was 7. My mother, I grew up in a very fabulous life. I had a very fabulous life growing up. I had lesbian parents, and
Oh,
I'm
wow.
very grateful. I have lipstick lesbian parents, and I grew up in a little tiny island called Guam. And my parents would get dressed up and they would go out and look fabulous, and they had all these amazing clothes. I was spoiled as a kid. I never really wanted for anything, and most people come up to me and tell me we had a problem coming out. I'm like, I never had that problem. I was very lucky.
That
you
is
know
luck, yeah.
I'm very lucky. I had lesbian parents who accepted me, and the irony of it is my mom's oldest brother is the Archbishop of Guam.
Wow.
So it's kind of like weird, and I wanted to go home for Christmas, but then there was this whole thing where they were trying to do legislation, like, because now the people of Guam are trying to, like, open their eyes to other kinds of things, because it's such a closed-minded, very Catholic, very traditional, very kind of, yeah, this is the way it is, and nothing's gonna change. And I was like, oh, I wanted to go home for Christmas and spend the holidays with my grandma. And like, you can't really go home yet. I was like, why not? They're like, oh, well, there's this thing going out that the church, the Archdiocese of Guam, is kind of like against these gays, and it's kind of crazy back there. And when I would go back during my teenage years from school, and I would create such a mess because I was a big alcoholic, and
Me too.
it was, so whatever, you get what you can. I'll try to go home next year, maybe do a fundraiser for the local, kind of, against Prop 8,
Yeah.
whatever their Prop 8 is there.
Equality, basically.
Marriage
in
equality,
and-
civil rights movement
yeah,
there.
that's right. That's what it is, civil rights.
And because the guy that's running it now was somebody I dated, so I'm just like, okay, maybe I'll come down.
That goes right back to the drag queens being the fierce fighters, the courageous leaders.
I mean, you've had some awesome people in the show, and I think they've all kind of burned and led the way to their own thing, and they've kind of forged ahead. And I guess you're gonna have Anaconda next, who I think, as a drag queen, is running for supervisor.
That's what I hear.
And I think it's pretty awesome that she's doing that. I mean,
Me too.
I think it's blazing a trail. I mean, I know Sister Boom Boom did it in the 80s here, and there should be more. I think there should be a resurgence in that kind of attitude, that we do need to fight. I mean, we all fight in different ways, but we do need to fight for something.
We need to stand for something,
Right.
or we'll fall for anything.
Right.
I remember that vividly. Well, what you talked a little bit about good causes and all of that, so that's a big part of the whole community, drag community, at
Right.
least, is giving back. And
Right.
it's like you don't get that much to start with, but you're always working on giving. So it's like a real conflict,
A lot of my charity work deals with the transgender community.
Which is wonderful.
I do a lot of work with the Transgender Law Center. Mason Davis, who's director of it, is amazing. Asian Pacific Islander Wellness Center runs a program called Trans Thrive on 815 Hyde. If anybody needs to do, if they wanted to join and fight the great tranny cause.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful.
Those are good places to start. I mean, contact my dear friend Cecilia Chang, who has been kind of instrumental in, who I am right now, and she's been kind of like, pushing me to do more and with the trans community, because a lot of homosexuals do kind of fear that. But
you're
like,
right.
if you look at the definition of transgender, drag is under that umbrella. Drag is you're still considered a transgender, no matter how freaky you look.
And see, you're saying, do you think you look freaky?
Well, I like, I live for, like, the amazing shock value fashion. I mean, really, epaulets, crazy. Michael Jackson, and it's shimmies and the ruffles. I like beauty and odd stuff. A lot of the things that have influenced me, like I said, was Vogue and fashion photography, and fashion in general.
You talked
The
about some famous
absurdity.
models that
Yeah.
were your heroes as a child. Where do you think real haute couture comes from?
I mean, haute couture. I have a master's in fashion design, so I can go
Okay.
on for hours
Yeah.
about this. Haute couture is basically a term that is specified only for fashions that are, or garments that are made in Paris, France, that are sanctioned by the Chambre Syndicale of Couture. And you can only be called couture if you use the houses like that produce like the feathers, the House of Le Marie, or the lace that comes from, there are certain houses that do certain things. Like if you look, for example, at Chanel. Chanel only goes to, they own the factories, but then they do all the things themselves in the workrooms, and they, the feathers, everything is done by hand, and it's very well crafted, and it fits like a glove.
That's amazing. I didn't know that, but I know that the term is used loosely.
It's very used loosely, but, true, like, I mean, I guess a lot of people, especially in that whole school of fashion thing, will, like, yell at you if you say, if it's, oh, yes, it's couture. I'm like, no, it's not couture, because it's only sanctioned by, like, the French government that this is couture. Like, there's only 7 houses, like Chanel, Dior, Givenchy, and all those amazing French labels that we all love to hear and wear and smell.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by the whole thing, but I was told, and I sincerely believe that from the exposure I've had to the drag community and a little bit of the fashion design community, that fashion designers, are fascinated and really regard drag fashion as one of the great resources for them.
Well, drag has always pushed every limit, has always pushed every boundary. And, my thesis collection was based on this whole thing about colonialism. But what if I did colonialism with gigantic drag style outfits? How insane would that be? And I won awards. So.
And so I'm riveted by what you're wearing tonight, especially this. But we've got some photographs of you, and I'm gonna let you explain some of them.
Well, apparently the camera does love me, and it's kind of it's weird because these are some photographs that my friend Connie took in her basement, and I was like, I need to do a video for a number that I'm doing. Well, that's a video taken when I was actually 21. By Alan, the photographer, and there you see, that's a jacket I made in a simple pencil skirt, and there you go. That's a vintage Saint Laurent top, and a fur top, but I don't know where the fur came from, China. That's a dress by Miss Juanita Moore. She made that. That is one of my favorite photographs of me, done by Kingman Young for the Desperate Divas calendar in 2007. I think it was the first calendar. I was Miss June, and it was a grueling photo shoot. That I was very